where I can talk about everything that I normally don't get to talk about in my regular sports podcast, Barbershop Sports Talk, which you guys can all find on Stitcher, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, SoundCloud, or whichever podcasting app or platform you may be listening to me via. Everybody, check out the podcast I released today. I had Ben Karen on, host of the Sports Father podcast. We dive into Ben gave his grades on the Chris Sims. For those of you who don't know, his father was Phil Sims, NFL quarterback for the New York Giants, won 2 Super Bowls. Ben gave his opinion on Chris Sims' NFL QB board. So the Trevor Lawrence's, the Trey Lance's, Ben gave his opinion on that. Also, Ben gave his opinion on my wide receiver big board, so the Devontae Smiths, the Jamar Chases of the world. Also, me and Ben, we dived into Russell Wilson, kind of what's going on with that in Seahawks, and we talked about Skip Bayless, Stephen A. Smith, Emmanuel Acho, Shannon Sharp in the world of sports media, and I had Paul Domowitch on, who covers the Philadelphia Eagles for the Philadelphia Inquirer, and we kind of talked about Carson Wentz and how he ended up leaving Philly, just some of the interactions with him, Nick Foles, Jalen Hurts, and just kind of how that all went sour. So really great podcast. Definitely check that out. It will be well worth your time. One of the best podcasts I feel like we put out. One of my favorites, actually. I was like, damn, this is a really good show. So here's what else we have just for the show today. And by the way, thank you everybody who's tuning in via Twitter /Periscope, Facebook Live, and YouTube live stream. So here's what we have today. So Skip Bayless, as I said before, I'm going to dive into that a little bit, re-signs with Fox. So we have some some NBA news, NBA All-Star talk to talk about. And McDermott, Doug McDermott's father, who coaches Creighton, he made some racial comments. So we're going to talk about all that. So first, let's start with this. So Skip Bayless is signing an extension with FS1 Fox Sports, $32 million. For 4 years. I think it's $8 million per year. That's a lot of money. That's a lot of cheese to talk sports. Hopefully I get there someday. But that is a lot of cheese. The really interesting thing about this report was Stephen A. Smith. For those of you who don't know, Stephen A. Smith and Skip Bayless did a show for years, First Take. You might think of First Take now with Max Kellerman and Stephen A. Smith, but it used to be Skip Bayless and Stephen A. Smith. Before that, they had Kerry Champion, and then Molly Cameron came in. Actually, even before that, they had Jay Crawford on. But Stephen A. Smith recruited Skip. He really wanted Skip to come back, and here's what the report says. If Skip did go back to ESPN, the duo would have done an ESPN Plus daily show together while being splashed over ESPN, including weekly spots on Monday Night Football halftime show. After lengthy negotiations, the culminated Fox Sports retaining Bayless with a $40 or $32 million contract extension. I think a lot of this too is Skip still wants to be on TV. Obviously, in this situation, he'd be if he's doing his daily commentary, it'd be more digital. And I don't know if necessarily Skip's 69 years old. Let's look this up. 69 years old. Maybe he doesn't want to do that. Also, he's a good gig at Fox. He has a really good gig at Fox. I don't know if he necessarily needs ESPN. And something that was really interesting is as I was reading this report, I had an anonymous producer, and he talked about guys that move the needle. And he said Stephen A. Smith, Skip Bayless, 2 guys who will always move the needle. And I think that kind of shows why their show was so popular, even though people might criticize both their takes, right? There's a lot of people who hate Stephen A. Smith and hate Skip Bayless, but you still tuned into them because whether you hated them or whether you loved them, you were interested in them. So I think that's really powerful. The worst thing in the world is to be neutral. So next, the NBA All-Star Draft. Kevin Durant and LeBron James were the captains. It was on TNT last night. Here was the draft. So the first pick is Giannis Antetokounmpo. Kevin Durant's first pick, Kyrie Irving. Then LeBron's next pick was Stephen Curry. Then KD's next pick was Joel Embiid. LeBron's pick then was Luka Doncic. Then it went to KD, Kawhi Leonard, LeBron, Nikola Jokic. And then KD got the last picks for the starters, Beal and Tatum. And then it goes to the reserves. KD picks Harden. LeBron picks Damian Lillard. KD picks Devin Booker. LeBron picks Ben Simmons. KD picks Zion Williamson. LeBron picks Chris Paul. KD picks Zach LaVine. LeBron picks Jaylen Brown. KD picks Julius Randle. LeBron picks Paul George. KD picks Nikola Vucevic. LeBron picks Domantas Sabonis. KD picks Donovan Mitchell. LeBron's left with Rudy Gobert. As I drop this. So what was really interesting, I think, about all this is, number one, Giannis was his first pick. There's been reports that potentially Giannis could be recruited to the Los Angeles Lakers. I think that's still going on. I think that's still part of LeBron's mind. LeBron James, he's buddy. He's trying to know all these NBA stars. I think that's something in his head. Maybe I can get Giannis. Maybe Giannis might end up not being happy in Milwaukee. We'll have to see. If Milwaukee Flames out in the postseason, there will start to be rumors. And listen, we've seen this. We're seeing this with quarterbacks now with Deshaun Watson and Russell Wilson. Now they can just request a trade out of nowhere. with their contracts up. We're seeing in the NBA where James Harden can have 2 years left on his deal and be like, hey, peace out, see ya, wouldn't want to be ya. Giannis can do that same thing. So I think maybe LeBron's sensing that. LeBron's like, hey, maybe we could get Giannis to LA. And remember, the Lakers, they were potentially, AD and LeBron were going to both take lesser money so they could get another max guy. Potentially that could have been Giannis Antetokounmpo. Also, the disrespect of the Utah Jazz is insane. It's asinine. It's abominable. Best record in the NBA, 27-8, I believe. One of the best defenses, one of the best three-point shooting teams. And both their players were picked last for the All-Star game. Rudy Gobert is criminally underrated, criminally disrespected. He's one of the best defensive players in all of basketball, yet he's the last pick. Donovan Mitchell, he's doing it all as the number one option on the best team in the NBA, yet nobody talks about Donovan. Like, I think, and LeBron said this, like, hey guys, in 2K, we never played with Karl Malone or Jerry Stockton because it's not fun. And I don't know if it's Salt Lake City, it's boring, it doesn't have the sex appeal, it doesn't have the pizzazz, it doesn't have the yada yada, but I think it is disrespectful. I think it's disrespectful. And I think two guys, and it's my biggest concern, are one of these two guys going to be left off the All-NBA team? Because truthfully, if you have the best record in the NBA, you should be on an All-NBA team. You should be voted high in this All-Star ballot. I think winning and having team success, sacrificing numbers, that should be applauded. That should be rewarded. And I don't think it's getting looked at enough. I really, really, really don't. So next up, Adam Silver says this. He wants the fans to consider this All-Star Weekend as a television-only event. They're going to have a mini bubble, quote unquote. I don't think the All-Star Games, Pro Bowls, all these events, they're not meant for there not to be fans. I think it's silly. I think it's stupid. The players, they want to go out. They're going to be in Atlanta. I think the really interesting thing about this is which player gets caught with a girl in the room. I think that's going to be the interesting. Who is it going to be? Something's going to go down. I just don't believe, or who's going to get COVID because they sneak out. Like, something to me is going to happen. And I don't particularly think the game is going to be all that great. LeBron, Giannis, Kawhi, all these guys said they're not in favor of it. Something I do want to also talk about as well that I saw is at the NBA All-Star break, NBA teams are averaging 112.1 points per game, which will be the most in any season in the last 50 years. The lowest scoring team in the NBA right now is the Cleveland Cavaliers. They're averaging 104.6 points per game. That would have ranked first in the NBA 10 seasons ago in 2011, 2012. I believe 2011, 2012, that would have been the Miami Heat year. LeBron won an MVP. I could be, because 10-11 was the Dallas meltdown, 11-12 was the Oklahoma City year. So you have the teams like the Spurs. Oklahoma City was really good at this point. Obviously, you have the King, you have the Boston Celtics and all this stuff. And the Cavaliers would have had a higher offense than all those teams. To me, that is crazy. It kind of shows how the game has evolved, how the game has changed. And I think it's really interesting when people talk about defense. I don't think defense has necessarily gone away. I just think it's played at a different level because you can't the rules do not help the defender, but there's still defense being played, right? There's still a top defense in the NBA. Like, even though the numbers might go up, it means that per what's going on based off these rules, you are still a really good defense. Next up, a lot is always made about the NBA TV ratings. I've talked about this a little bit, how it's nowhere near as popular than the NFL, and kids out there, the NBA is not the NFL. But the NBA ratings in terms of the TV, they're up 3% across all national networks this season, and have a viewing for the All-Star draft. It was up 34%, which is really good. So props to the NBA. I know they were struggling with ratings bad. I know it was bad in the finals. It was kind of not that great during Christmas, but I'm happy to see more people are tuning in and those numbers are going up. And probably a little bit of that has to do with the fact that there's no college football and there's no NFL. And the NBA is kind of having our focus now as we get past All-Star break, and we're going to be talking about these stars, LeBron James, Kevin Durant, Giannis Antetokounmpo, more and more and more. And lastly, Greg McDermott, Sean McDermott's father, who was the head coach of the Creighton basketball team, he was suspended indefinitely for making comments about a plantation. And I want to read this. So he said, his comments specifically, he said, guys, we got to stick together. We need both feet in. I need everybody to stay on the plantation. I can't have anybody leave the plantation, McDermott said, and he was suspended for that. He also volunteered to resign, and I guess he ended up doing it. I think he also said that the players, our guys wanted me to coach, and that's my job. I think whether you disagree, you think it's too harsh, whether you believe in cancel culture or not, obviously, and whether the players thought it was offensive or not, I think the issue is you just can't say stuff like that. And it's not even just that. Like, even the way coaches have to deal with stuff. Like, when Nick Saban goes into a family's room, he has to say different things than what you could say 20 years ago. You can't say stern stuff to kids. You can't necessarily curse at a kid like you could. Even with corporal punishment, you can't hit it. Like, the society is changing. I don't always know if it's for the better, but it is changing, and you have to evolve with that. Part of that's because of social media. It's because of technology. It's because of streaming. Like, everything is different. Our lives are being put on a TV screen for all of us to see, and we see our worst moments. And maybe he didn't articulate himself. I don't know why he used the word plantation. I don't know. Maybe somebody can explain that in the comments. But, obviously doesn't mean he's racist or anything like that. But being suspended, I don't know if maybe even that was the move. But it's the day and age we live in. So I just wanted to touch on that. And that's all we have for this edition of Outside the Shop. Like I said, check out the podcast, Barbershop Sports Talk, that I had my guy Ben Karen on. We delved into draft big boards and Russell Wilson, and we talked about Skip Bayless and Stephen A. Smith and sports media. Also, I had Paul Domowitch on, Pro Football Hall of Fame voter and writer for the Philadelphia Inquirer on, and we talked about Carson Wentz and how everything turned bad in Philly. So that's on the podcast for Barbershop Sports Talk that I released this morning. Also, everybody subscribe to the YouTube channel as well. That is very much appreciated. And share this show. Share this show as well. Everybody, thank you for tuning in, and God bless.